So I'm Leslyn McBean Clairborne, and currently I'm the director at the Greater Ithaca Activities Center. Most people know it as GIAC. I describe GIAC to everyone who asks, what is GIAC? As a large, multicultural, social justice community center here in the city of Ithaca. I've just recently retired from the Tompkins County Legislature after almost 21 years or a little over 20 years of service. Very rewarding, very encouraging to do that. And in general, I'm just here in this community as a community leader, advocating, involving in a lot of advocacy work, a lot of social policy work, and trying to do as much as I can to balance the equity for everyone, especially people who are most marginalized in our community. So I do a lot of advocacy work around that. I'm also a mother, I'm also a wife, and that for me is probably the most important role in my life, especially caring for my children. Advocacy work, everything from supporting people who are immigrants, many who are undocumented, helping people to get their paperwork together, to speaking out against police brutality and violence, particularly against Black people, to doing work through GIAC to make sure that people get whatever minor financial support they need, that they can make ends meet. Single mothers, supporting them in all kinds of ways, whether it's housing, low-income housing being a big one on my list. So showing up at meetings, doing these things, working on committees to make sure that our citizens aren't just being thrown in jail because they have drug addiction issues, they have any kind of substance abuse disorder issues, that we deal with what is the root of the problem. So sitting on committee so that that voice is represented. You know, there's just a whole host of things that I do and get involved in around advocacy, because for me, that's the way that you can't talk about a problem and not be a part of it, of the solution. And it's so important to me, and I'm a part of the solution. My own lived experiences is what brings me to this place. That is so important. I know what it is to have lived in poverty and to depend on the welfare system. I know what it is to deal with relatives who are incarcerated. My eldest son right now is in prison. Although I think wrongfully so, but, you know, speaking out against a justice system that is not just, you know, meeting with people who are like minds who want to deal with issues of restorative justice and bring that sort of platform to bear. So that's just some of what I do, and things come my way all the time, and I work hard to make sure that I am trying my best to make this community a better place for everyone. And not just the Ithaca community, beyond the Ithaca community. You know, it's interesting because you do this work, right? You go out there, you do stuff, roll up my sleeves and go into rebuild effort, New Orleans or wherever. And you never think of it as, how are you represented in it? I don't think of it that way. I think of, what are people getting? How am I impacting lives? So when you ask about this project, first of all, I just love anything that sounds theater because I'm an actress, and I just love anything that sounds like creating art, theater. But when I thought about it, I thought of, who am I in the advocacy work? Which Leslyn is presented? And what about me and my lived experiences make it so that I gravitate to this work. And that's why I wanted to get involved, because I wanted to see what I was going to create to represent me in this work. As opposed to, I can tell you what it means and what the people who benefit, what that looks like. But I had never stopped to think about that part for me. And if I have a few minutes, I'll tell you why, Sue. I just finished my dissertation last year, finished my PhD last year. And my dissertation was about Black women's mental health and how it is impacted by the unjust killing of their unarmed Black relatives. Not just by police or any, just unarmed Black relatives being killed, and how Black women are impacted, how their mental health is impacted. And it was from my own experience. I didn't lose my sons, but they came close. And I just know how my mental health was impacted. So when I was doing this research work, I did everything I could to make sure that, the women who were talking to me, who were from throughout this country, were taken care of. I had a counselor ready, everybody ready in case they needed some debriefing or they needed some counseling after they had spoken with me. What I didn't do was put things in place for my own self. So that's what I meant. It's like I do this work, but I didn't think about my own self. And after going through 3 interviews, I could not continue. I found myself on my room floor where I was conducting these interviews, bawling for about an hour. I could not stop crying. And I realized that in order for me to represent what these women were experiencing, I had internalized so much of it. And I didn't put any therapy in place for me, any safety nets for me. I did it for them. So when you called, all those things were part of, it was fresh what I was going through. And I thought, this is perfect. I get to put me in this picture and see what that looks like. So that's why I wanted to get involved with it. I even wrote my piece of poetry about me in this role, and what do I look like? How do I present? And I was going to take that and turn it into a piece of visual art. So yeah, that is what got me there.
What happened?
Well, what happened is that, as incredibly crazy busy as I am, nightmarishly so I say sometimes, there were 2 workshop sessions that we needed to attend with a fabulous woman who does visual art. We met her. She showed some of the artwork she's done. I was so moved by it. That's the very night after we met her that I wrote that piece of poetry. I was moved to go do it right away, because I also know if I didn't do it right away, it probably wouldn't get done. But it was also what was resonating with me in the moment as I looked at some of her artwork. Who am I in those things? And I'm tearing up. And but I could only make one of the 2 sessions. And she said you needed to make both of them. But then by the time you got back to me to say, hey, she said it's okay to do one, that time frame had already been booked with the senator, New York State senator, and I couldn't get out of it. So I felt so bad that I couldn't participate in the project, because I knew it would have been incredibly meaningful for me, and to be able to share just the journey I went through in discovering my own self, like I said, in these roles, and then translating that to visual art as well as written work, and to be able to share that with the community, I think would have been powerful. So I apologize that I couldn't do it. But that's what happens. My advice would be nosy. Get involved. And when I say be nosy, be deliberately nosy and purposefully nosy. Not just because you want to get in the neighbor's business and be spreading rumors, but because you want to know what's going on. You want to get to know the people around you. You want to know what's happening in your community and in your area. I mean, I got involved in a lot of these things, and I think people chose me to run for political office because I was involved in my neighborhood. I'm not from this country. There's a lot I didn't know, but I knew what I wanted in my neighborhood that I lived in. So there was a gas station next door to where I was living that had been dormant for years or, gone. But they still had tanks on the ground and it was leaking and you can smell it. And people were complaining about their health. So why aren't they out? Why aren't we clean up? There are policies against this stuff. Be nosy. Get involved. I say to folks, you have something to say, something to share. If you have the ability to get out there and meet somebody, you don't know what kind of impact you can have on their life. So sometimes your nosiness is as simple as seeing somebody's face as you pass by and saying, good morning, how are you doing today? Because you sense something. For all you know, you might have intervened and interrupted some self-destructive behavior that person would have done. And I'm saying that from truth, and I'm saying that from something I have done and experienced. So do that. Know what's happening and be willing to get involved. Be willing to be vulnerable, because when you get into political office or advocacy, people are going to come after you. I had people come after me for 20-something years that I've been in political office. I have people come after me now, despite all that we do with GAC. And that's okay. After 20-something years, I've developed a really thick skin. It really doesn't bother me, because what I do know is that what we're doing is trying to save lives, trying to impact meaningful change. So do that. Stand up. Say something. There's the saying, even if your voice shakes, speak up. Stand with someone else. Your speaking up might be just standing with someone else and letting them know, I'm right here with you. I don't know what to say, but my presence says it. Do that. And know that you are going to make a difference.